Hello, happy Tuesday. Let's get started. So, quick hint, anytime you see a green space, that is when you're going to do an activity. So today you will dig more deeply into the aftermath of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. You will take a closer dive into Kent's excerpt from the story of the Triangle Factory fire, and you will work to identify and analyze Kent's tone toward the event. You will consider and then explain how the author's overall tone helps him to reveal his purpose for writing the text. First, you're going to watch the video to learn about identifying and analyzing an author's tone toward a subject. Then you're going to practice working with tone in a short writing challenge. Then you will reread the text introduced yesterday and gather evidence regarding the author's tone. And then finally, you will use the evidence you gathered to help you craft a short written response to the reading. If you need help with the activity for today, you just go to slide 9. I will go over slide 9 with you, so we should be able to figure that out. If you need the translated instructions, all you need to do is click on these links. It'll bring you right to it. So for today, you will reread the text that you explored yesterday, the story of the Triangle Factory fire by Zachary Kent. You can access the full text here through clicking this link. Hopefully it's not one of those texts where everybody is changing the words around and I have to frantically fix that. So watch the video here to kind of give you an idea of what tone is. So tone in informational text is the author's attitude toward the subject. This is very important. We often get mood and tone mixed up. We want to make sure that we are paying attention to the fact that tone is how the author wants you to feel, or how the author feels toward the subject, and then the mood is how the author wants you to feel. Okay, so the tone is how the author feels about a subject. So you're kind of like reading into what the author is saying to get a better insight into how they actually feel. Much like you probably do with real people in your own life. Like if your friend says that everything's fine, but you know that it's not, you can tell by their tone that they're not very happy with what's happening. The tone gives the reader a window into the author's purpose for writing. So for example, if a author is writing an article about climate change and they seem to be very frustrated by it, you would gather the idea that their purpose for writing it is to make their readers understand that they should be taking extra steps to try and prevent climate change and global warming. Watch this short video on the different clues authors use in their writing to help the reader identify the tone they are using. So watch the video. It'll be very, very helpful. If you need to take notes, absolutely take notes. If you need to pause it and rewind it, you have that ability as well. Okay, use this video as a good resource to help guide your idea of what tone is. Okay, so let's work with tone. The video helps us to understand that authors use careful word choice and include important information in their writing to help us identify the tone. In the space provided, write a few sentences about the following simple situation: doing remote learning. As you write, remember that you want the reader to know your attitude toward the subject. Pick purposeful words and include specific information that help convey your feelings. So for example, if you happen to love remote learning and you wish that you were consistently doing remote learning, then your writing should be geared a little bit more toward the fact that you think remote learning is a positive change for you. If you feel the opposite, your tone should come off the opposite. Okay. Coffee break. For the next 4 years, commission investigators crawled and pried through the rooms and cellars of the factories and tenement houses all across the state. They examined workers' filthy living conditions and witnessed the dangers of crippling machinery and long work hours in dusty, dirty fire traps. So that is an example of a piece of text taken from the story of the Triangle Factory fire. Does anyone else think that's a tongue twister? My Triangle Factory fire. Okay, so what is Kent's tone in these lines from the excerpt? You are going to look at the lines specifically given to you and talk about Kent's tone toward the subject. So you're thinking about a specific word that he may or may not have used, or a specific word that you can use to describe exactly how his tone is coming across in these lines here, not in the whole story, just in these lines. What words or details from the section of the text support your ideas? So there are some really big buzzwords here that make it so that it's almost pretty clear to understand how the author feels about the conditions that these workers were working in. So think about the specific words that he uses to try and understand why he put those words in there and what kind of impact they have on the tone. All right, so quick activity. So you're going to reread the entire excerpt. So that means the excerpt that you have in the text, not the excerpt that you just got here. You're reading the entire excerpt that you have linked in the, I think, slide 3. So you're going to reread the entire excerpt. After you do, go back to the identified lines below and add evidence to the provided organizer. Some details have been added as an example. So lines 1 through 28. Some words that you are going to use to describe the author's tone: disbelief, outrage. So in those lines 1 through 28, where it's showing disbelief and outrage, what text evidence are you going to supply to show that this specific tone is being outlined? Okay. Now, differently on the next part, lines 29 through 30 or through 44. It gives you the text evidence. Furious New Yorkers refused to let the issue rest. And in that, from this evidence that you have been provided, you're not going to provide more evidence. You are going to provide the words that describe the tone. And then in lines 45 through 58, you are going to do both the tone and the evidence that backs up that tone. Okay, so you're doing one part here, the other part here, and then both parts in the third one. Identifying tone helps the reader understand the author's purpose for writing. Based on how he feels about the events of the fire and the actions taken afterward, what conclusions can you draw about why Kent writes the story of the Triangle Factory fire? So you're basically coming up with the author's main purpose for this. You are not going to give me more tone words. You are going to talk about why the author wrote this story based on what you know about the tone. So write a short response in the space below, being certain to include key evidence you added in your organizer from today's reread. And then finally, we have a language focus slide. So you're going to use the word wheel to find the right tone word. So start in the center and choose one of the 6 general emotions. So if you start in the center and maybe you chose the emotion of love, you're going to look outwards and pick from the specific list. So accepted, gentle, affectionate, passionate, trusted. These words are things that you can use to specifically talk about how the author felt about the factory fire. So I think one of the things that they even gave you was like disbelief and outrage. So outrage would be something that's pretty close to anger, okay? Threatened, mad, offended, frustrated, annoyed, those kind of words would work well here, okay? So if you are having trouble thinking of tone words for this slide, the best thing that you can do is look at these words to help you out. You know what? It might help if I actually make this slide before that slide. Okay, so I changed the slide. So now this slide is before the slide 7, where you're going to be doing the tone words, okay? So slide 6 is before slide 7. So you can use the things in slide 6 to help you with slide 7. Okay. And then if you need additional help with the activity, you're going to practice tone. So a tone example: disgust and shameful. Jane was completely mortified when she noticed toilet paper on the bottom of her shoe after leaving the bathroom. She slumped into her seat without looking up. So that is a tone that is disgust and shameful. So you're going to take the next 2 examples and you are going to practice identifying tone with these 2 examples. So it's basically a way for you to practice a little bit before you before you move into actually rereading the whole activity. Okay. And then at the end, you'll create an example sentence of your own and talk about what the tone of that sentence is. All right. That is it for today. Use the question sheet, use the attendance because that is mandatory. And if you have not already, sign up for the meet that we're going to have on Thursday. Remember, if you do 3 meets by the end of the year, I will give you a work pass. So that would mean you can skip all of the work for 1 day of my work. Okay? So you have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow.